Thank you everyone for joining in. We are going to talk about a very important topic. You are in the privacy domain. You would have definitely heard about ISO 27701 as well as the newer ISO standard around privacy by design, which is ISO 31700. So, looking at how much privacy is being talked about, even ISO and all the other standardized organizations are coming up with a set of standards that can help you understand how to develop a privacy infrastructure internally. So, focusing on that, we decided to have a discussion on the ISO. So we are a data protection consulting firm and we intend to impart data privacy and data protection related. Tanin, who is a data privacy expert, a CIPM, has also gone through ISO 27001 and multiple different certifications around. Then, of course, you also have me, and I work at Tsaaro as a director for security and privacy. Tanin, I would just hand it over to you if you can introduce yourself, and we'll then go ahead with the session.
Sure. Thank you, Krishna. Thank you for welcoming me for the webinar. Hi, everyone. This is Tanin. I have around 15 plus of experience. I'm currently working into data privacy field, and I have a couple of certification as Krishna mentioned: CIPM, UGDPR practitioner, ISO 27001, 31000. These are the main certifications that I would talk about because these are the ones that would be linked towards today's discussion. So that's a short description of what I am currently doing. Thank you.
Perfect, Anand. Because the number of ISOs that I see on your bio obviously helps our users and attendees also understand that, of course, how ISO actually operates in a business environment and how to also imbibe the requirements or the controls in your internal infrastructure. So I think that's probably a great thing for us to have you here. And just a disclaimer for everyone, whatever we discuss does not represent our organization or should not be constituted as legal advice. This is purely for information basis. And if you have any follow-up questions or if you feel that we went wrong somewhere, feel free to comment here in the comment section or just connect with us on LinkedIn so that we can probably elaborate or have a discussion around it. So the agenda for today's session, we would start with a simple introduction. Then we would talk about why ISO 27701, what is the business case on getting ISO 27701 certified. We'll talk a bit about benefits, implementation of 27701, probably the hardest part of any standard as well, the actual implementation. I'm not talking about documentation because you can find templates everywhere. Then we will also talk a bit about the organizational challenges. These are the specific challenges that came up and that we have seen personally in our own implementations, and we have also seen with other industry peers who have implemented 27701. And towards the very end, a very short notice on how we can assist you with the 27701 implementation.
So ISO 27701, which is commonly known by PIMS, Privacy Certification Privacy Information Management System. So it comes with someone. It doesn't come solo. It comes with ISO 27001, which is ISMS. Something like it comes along with the big brother. So if the big brother doesn't come, he cannot come alone. You cannot implement 27701 without having ISO 27001, which is without ISMS, you cannot have PMS. Having said that, look behind when we started all about it. So ISMS started in 1995, and when we had a long period of time when we understand that privacy was not being covered thoroughly in ISMS. Hence, the PIMS came into picture in 2019, and we now have one more certification called 27701. And now, as you said earlier, privacy by design, that 2730000 we having coming in picture, and we have many other certifications coming into picture. Now, talking about this certification, specifically this 27701, what exactly does it? It's a controller. It is a framework between controller and processor to manage privacy controls, to reduce the privacy risks that are there within the companies, and also give rights to individuals regarding the privacy controls on it. As I say, privacy doesn't come without security. So you need security in place. So obviously, I cannot say that I have implemented privacy in a company and do not have security in place. So various other security solutions, when implemented, and then we have the ISO 27701 implemented, then we can have a robust protection on our privacy and the individuals when data subjects or personal information that are part of any company's processing activity are being stored in a such a way that we have a proper controls to it, having controls along with the security solutions.
Tanin, I would just want to add on to that. There is a very common misconception, and people want to understand that whether being ISO certified or ISO 27701 certified would solve my GDPR troubles, or would that mean that I'm GDPR compliant? So, what's your take on that?
Now, what happens in the current market standard, we have seen that people try to get the certifications to show their clients that we are following some process, some standards which you can compare with whether you are in India, US, or UK, wherever you are. So if I'm saying that I'm following some controls, then any client coming to me would understand the value of it, how we are processing the data, how we are giving solutions to the data, how we are securing the data. So these are the few things that I check. Now, every client cannot come into your company and ask for what exactly you're doing, how you're doing it. But having some controls is like a benchmark of having it. now companies are starting to get. I would say in India, all financial companies would have around 99.99% would have ISMS, but they do not have 27701. They are picking up. They are slowly and eventually understanding the value of privacy. Now, even the clients come and ask whether you are both the certified, you are 22301, which is like an BCP certified or not. So all these certifications do come into picture. They when the clients come into picture and they ask for it. Now, having said that, having all these certifications are giving you a kind of a progress report of how we are, how we stand in the market.
So, Tanin, a lot of the clients that come to us, they read over the internet and they see that ISO 2701 talks about privacy, and then they go for this notion that why don't we just go for 27701? So, I have a very hard time telling them or making them understand that it acts as an extension to the information security certification, and also that you can't do privacy without security. That's very obvious because if you look at the data processing principles or the core concepts of privacy, there are certain security measures you have to take. How we famously call it technical and organizational measures. That
Right.
basically means a list of security requirements that you will have to fulfill.
So adding to it, I can say that I am ISO 27001 certified or ISO 27701 certified. People cannot say that I am GDPR certified. So GDPR is a framework, whereas ISO is a controls where you have various controls and you have to follow them. So when you follow them, then you can third person coming to your picture will come to know, okay, fine, this is what you have done in your company and you are qualified enough to handle our personal data.
Yep, that's right. One of the other things that we usually see these days is that a lot of companies are asking for a GDPR certification because they know that for information security, 27001 holds good. Also, the key aspect here is that it is not law specific, it's law agnostic. If you have an ISO certification, does not mean that you are fully compliant to any law because ISO does not specifically focus on GDPR or CCPA or any other privacy law. It focuses on building privacy processes and what are the certain other privacy principles that you can imbibe and push within your organization. So, Tanin, what is your view on the benefits of ISO 27001 or why is it even required for an organization? Because I think one thing you also mentioned is that you have processes. So, one thing that I can also think about is that it would be easier for you to respond to the questionnaires that come in. As a business, if you are interacting with another business or if you're a B2B company, there are a lot of questionnaires that come your way before you can actually start working with them. So, do you think that helps there, or what is your take on the
Right.
importance of
So many a times, as you said, that when the client comes into picture, they do not understand the value, or they just heard by the name, or just hear just I need a company to support our functions, need to be privacy compliant or GDPR compliant, or rather ISO 27001 certified. Someone like that who can handle our personal data. Now, various clients that comes with a humongous data set. For example, financial data. These are like sensitive personal data. You have medical companies coming across to making sure that you process their data. They are like your biometric data and all other data are your special data. Now, for that reason, you need some kind of an approach by the servicing company to make sure that they are compliant enough. Adding to this, why you should do it? Because it is a systematic approach, no doubt about it. Because we have controls, 30, 40 controls on it, and people are following that the controls. It's like I understand that this company, or if I am going to a company and to give my business, I know that this company is compliant on 40. Now, who is verifying that? Now, there will be a third party vendor who is becoming like so many auditing company come to your picture and they do auditing to your company to make sure that you are that compliant. Any certification that you talked about. Now, this is how the client is gaining trust on you, gaining that, making sure that they can believe on you. The way you are doing it, I understand that you are following some set of norms, which is like a best practice in the market, and it has been verified by a third party vendor who's audited your company. Now, this gives you a competitiveness around others. Now, for example, if you're bidding for a project and out of 100 bidders, you are the only one who has certified. Obviously, however small or big company you are, you'll be getting the opportunity to picking up the project rather than bigger companies with not following the process would come into picture. Because data is the new oil, as people would have heard long back. The data you got to process in such a way and keep it in such a way, because if it got fire on it, you'll just lose everything. You lose your business, you lose your clients, your reputations, and after all that, the fines are humongous. Now, just reading about these fines, Google, Marriott, H&M, British Airways, Facebook, all have paid fines. These are the big names. They did pay fine because of their data privacy issues. Having said that, if they would have done it in a proper way, I'm not talking Facebook of US, Facebook would have done some mistakes in some other European countries and they have picked up all this. So it is important that your name and fame goes off. Someone who doesn't want my data to be leaked from any database, either it's a Marriott or H&M, I would value it. If I have to give a business to someone, I need to know that this data is clean and clear. So it is important that whom this companies has given their data to and how they have processed it. So all these are some benefits of having a ISO. I'm just not talking about 27701. Any certifications that you have on your start. It's like a star on your badge.
Tanin, I think some of the other questions that people usually have is that, especially if they are from a business function, what I've seen is that there are some clients who come to us and say that there is a client requirement that we need to have privacy processes in place. So, how much time will it take for me to get ISO 27701 certified? So, what's your view on it? How do you see the timeline? And what do you think are the factors that affect the timeline the most? For example, the first thing that comes to my mind is that there needs to be support from the leadership that actually helps you drive the ISO certifications. What are some other parameters that you can help share with the attendees?
So ISO, whatever certifications you have to drive in your organization, it has to come from top to bottom. So your management needs to be in line with what you are thinking. Your management needs to believe on you as in you can do it, or this is the something need of the art. So you need to have it to show the other competitive companies that we are ISO certified, so we're doing legally correct work. So for that reason, obviously it has to come top to bottom. Any individuals who are trying to drive in from down, and if your management is not able to support you, it does not work. It is like a top to bottom approach that you have to do. But I need to understand how long does it take to be certified in ISO or any certification. So there are stages of stage 1, stage 2, and we have then we call it and obviously we have an ongoing certification that we come into picture. So the first thing that comes into picture is stage 1. The auditor comes to your place, or they do a on-call data to understand what all documents that you have prepared, what all you got to showcase, and how you plan to do it. That is what you do in the stage 1. After stage 1, you get a couple of months of time. You get to decide that within 2-3 months you can decide that the next stage 2 need to happen. So after that, stage 2 come into picture. They're very important and the most scrutinized audit to be done by the auditors. They verify every point of what you said, and they would like to verify that how you are privacy compliant. Obviously, this comes along with the ISMS certification. With that, once you are stage 2 clear, you get that seal, and that you can put on your website that you are ISO 27701 certification. After that, every year you have ongoing review to make sure that you are following. It's not just that you said once, you did once, and then you are not following it. Then your ISO certification would go, because you get a certification from certain period of time, and within that time you got to review every time to make sure that you are privacy compliant. Now let's understand that amount of period that is required. Ideally, a lot of things goes behind this. The preparation to do before going for the stage 1 audit is a lot to understand where we are. So the gaps we need to understand. So lot many steps are need to be performed before getting into the stage 1 of audit.
Tanin, can you also help people understand now? For example, there are a lot of times when our clients say that I want to get ISO 27701 certified, but I want it done within 3 months. And I think it becomes increasingly painful for us as a consulting firm to also help them understand that it's not a plug and play solution. The whole point of ISO certifications or standards are that every business process is different, every business infrastructure is different, which is why the timeline is something that would greatly vary. So if you are an organization that has legacy systems, that is on the cloud, that is also working in a hybrid model, and you have different business models as well, operating in geographic jurisdictions which are more than 30-40, so obviously it would take you more than a year to fully comply with that.
You should be, I'm sorry to interrupt, it is better to be prepared before and get it certified earlier rather than doing a certification because your client has asked for it. So it's something like be prepared when you're coming to the market while bidding for the project. So you are already certified, then you don't need to do it because your client has said to do it. 2019 is a very new for us, so people who would have not heard about. People being in 1995, the ISO 27001, the ISMS that I'm talking about, even many companies do not have it. They say that we follow it, but we are not certified. But yes, this is a new one, so people need to understand that yes, if it is a new one, we need to pick it up and we need to make sure that we need to be compliant on both the certification and then come into market, or rather bid for a new project with having all this at the ready. Yes, the geographic location across, you have a location in India, you have something in US, and you have some of your offices in South Asian countries and Europe and Dubai. It will take time because you got to verify all the details. So ISO 27701 might have a 10 or 15, 20 controls, but it doesn't come alone. It comes with the big brother, the ISMSs. So you got to have ISMSs implemented. So if you start with that implementation, it does take time, and implementation is need to be done thoroughly, and that gives a big upper hand on a lot of other people.
I think I agree, because when we look at ISMS implementation or 27001 implementation, it definitely takes time because there is also dependency on technological solutions that will support that implementation. And when we say solution, and if you are a large organization, you would definitely know that the procurement process is longer. It would take you time to gather, evaluate vendors, and assess which one is best for you. All of these things should also be accounted for when you are doing an implementation of the ISO 27001, and at the same time over the top when you're doing a 27701 implementation.
If I'm not wrong, there are around 114 controls in 27001. 114 controls to be audited, and the more number of vendors that you have put on and checking on each of the vendors and all the vendor agreement, and it does take time.
You are absolutely right, Tanin, because 2013 version ISO 27001 has 114 controls, but the 2022 version, they have merged a few controls and added a few controls as well. I think the count is somewhere around 92, 94. So they have merged a few controls, they've added a few controls, and they've also introduced new concepts that are more prevalent in the current evolving landscape. It makes more sense to add those controls, such as threat intelligence is something that I've picked up. Some really good controls that they've added in. And I think if you have that certification, the 2022 version, and on top of it, if you add the 27701, you would have a very robust information security and data privacy infra. And from there, you can take it to a different maturity level sometime in the future based on the roadmap that you have for the business. I think, Tanin, you have also focused a bit about the benefits of ISO 27701. Let's also talk a bit from a user's perspective. This is from a business perspective that we're looking at, but what about people who want to get themselves certified in ISO 27701? What do you think are the things that they would be taught, or what are the key core areas that they would focus on when they are going for a lead auditor or a lead implementer certification?
So similarly, you cannot be an ISO 27701 certified lead auditor until unless you are an ISO 27001 lead auditor. You can do a lead implementer, you can just learn about it, but you cannot be a lead auditor. So learning it's something and getting certification is something different. Yes, individuals who are planning to do this certification, first you need to go back and look for 27001 ISMS, because that comes along with it. If you are certified that, and then you can look for two more courses that comes into picture. One is certification of lead auditor and lead implementer, where you understand how things have been done. It's like there is a table. You are either this side of the table or that side of the table. Either you are this side of the table, then you have to implement it. You need to know how to implement it. Other side of the table, you need to know how to audit it. So being a lead auditor, you just need to cross check with all the controls that have been put across from the control book, and then check your organizations to make sure that you are compliant to it. For individuals, that would be the roadmap. Any individuals who have certain amount of experience then directly go for first this certification, followed by the another one.
Tanan, we also have a question from Ankit. The question is whether this certification is for organizations or individuals.
It is for both. Individual would go for a lead auditor certification, and the big four, if they come to audit the company, they will be lead auditors who would be auditing the company. But as a company, you will not get ISO 27001 lead auditor certified. You'll get an ISO 27001 certified. So we call it as an ISMS certified company. So for answering to your question, yes, there is a certification for the lead auditor, and there is a certification for the company also. You go down right below, right or left side of any company website, you will see they are certified, to make sure the people understand that we are following those controls.
Tanan, there's also another question, and I think this is also one of the key questions that people have. If the organization is already 27001 certified, how long will it take them to implement 27701? So Anmol, I would say 3 to 12 months. It could also go longer depending on the size of the organization, the kind of business they do, the different laws that are applicable, the different requirements they have to meet. But 3 to 12 months is an ideal time. But then you also have to factor in the time when an auditor would come in and the auditor would give you their availability. So these things would definitely take time.
Also, it is also important that your validity of your previous certification. If you're invalid, if your validity is for 3 years and you are looking for a new certification after 3 years, then you first have to go for the previous one, 27001, and then you can go for 2001. It doesn't mean that I have got certified once, that is my lifetime certification. No, it is not. You need to validate and verify every year by the ongoing process of validation. And for that, you would have auditors coming into picture who would do the validation of the same.
That's right. And similarly, the number of days that the audit requires also depends on the complexity of the organization, how it is structured and everything. Because I've seen audits happen in 2 days, 3 days. I've also seen audits that last for more than 15 to 20 days. So the time frame varies on the kind of the organization you are working with.
The geographical locations, if it is in US and India, so you would find a delay, obviously. And then if there's something sitting in South Asian countries and not matching with India, so when India starts, they are on sleep, and when India is sleeping, they are starting their work. Then that makes the things delayed. And the more number of people and more number of vendors and more number of applications, everything needs to be verified. You're certifying the whole company.
That's right. And at any point, if anyone has any questions, you can put it up in the comments. Now, let's also look at a stage-wise approach, because Tanin also mentioned that the audit actually happens in 2 stages, 1 and 2. But if I am implementing ISO 27701, what would be certain key focus areas, or how can I actually begin this journey? Where do I start? This is a very common question that you would definitely ask while you start with a newer task. So Tanin, what do you think are the first few things that you would do as an implementer?
First important thing is the scope of the audit. Many a times we have seen seen that people are unable to define the scope. The way you define the scope, you will include your applications, your company, and all that. So if you are a company who has multiple other companies along with you, or you just want to get a certified of one of the company out of all the three, then you got to mention on your scope that I'm just planning for certification for only for this part of this company, which is into IT. I'm not looking for something else. Some other IT companies who is a part of my company would not be looking for it. The scope is very important. Now, understanding the scope is first, and then you got to do the where you are and what are the gaps that you are. So what we call as a gap assessment. What we have currently, if we are following out of 10, 15 controls, we are just following two. Okay, there are a gap of 13. Then we have to make sure that how do we rectify that. Probably some gaps might need financial help from organizations to reach those gaps. Probably things are not in place, maybe legal system is not properly done, or the agreements are not been checked. So all that things have to be picked up one by another, and you got to fill up those gaps. Now once you've done that, then you call for stage one audit. But even though there are organizations who help you to reach those gaps also, they will directly come to your organization and make you understand, okay, you are in stage -2, we'll put you on -1, then we will put on 0, then we can go on stage 1, something like that. It's stage wise. So yes, there are organizations who helps even to pick you up from where you are right now. And if you are planning to do some certifications for the organizations, yes, that can be done. Gap assessment, understanding the scope, gap assessment, filling those gaps. How do you feel that? For example, if an individuals who want to do it for their organizations and just want to call for stage 1 audit, then all this hard work of getting these things done would be your piece of work that you have to do it from the beginning, and that needs your management blessings to it always.
Absolutely true, Tanin. I think scoping is very important, and I've seen more often than not that more organizations are focused on directly implementing the controls, but they don't really know what's in place and what's not in place because they go straight ahead with a scope that they feel would be right. But then when the actual ISO journey begins, they feel that this is not something we want to cover now.
It's too
Right?
much.
So,
That is too much included in this scope, and then we have to remove this. We cannot have all my companies to be certified at one go. We need
exactly.
to certify. As I said, scope is first and foremost thing that needs to be defined, and that has to be thorough down to every individual to understand. Yes, this is my scope. I cannot involve any other thing onboarded at this point. So from there on, it starts on. The scope is the most important thing.
Right. Because as an example, what I am currently doing in my organization is that we are doing an audit for an external client, and the scope is limited to India and Asia Pacific region. But when we have these conversations, it usually goes into a different direction where we are also covering a different geographic jurisdiction. Now, it's important for us to also come back onto the scope because even then the auditees, they come up with the statement that this is not in scope, right? You should not cover this. But the reason we cover that is because the other activities also impact the India and Asia Pacific region. I understand that different geographic jurisdictions are not in my scope, but if it impacts the business processes
Yes.
or processes that have been defined for India and Asia Pacific, I have to cover that as an auditor. It's very important to understand what's actually considered and what's not. Then there's also another question from Krishna Sood. The question is that a lot of privacy lawyer roles in the market also expect candidates to have knowledge and experience regarding ISO certifications. So how can a beginner build experience in ISO?
It does need experience to it. But having said that, as an individual who are new to the organizations and who are recently picking up ISO, they can start learning it. No certifying audit or certification company who is giving you certification for being a lead auditor or lead implementer, they will not ask for amount of experience that you have. But having some experience will make you understand the logic behind it. Now, for today, if someone is a fresher and looking for this certification, they will not be able to connect those dots. It's very important then how you connect those dots. When as a lead auditor, I'm going to teach you about ISO 27001 or ISO 27701, but you will not be able to connect those dots. So having some experience with the organizations where you can understand what going across, where do you come this picture, because many a times I have seen in my experience of 16 years that people would come from a different background, and now this is a new talk of the town that you do have an ISO 27701 certification. Let's do it. But yes, you can do it. But having said that, will you be able to connect those dots being at that point of time? It will take time. Obviously, if you have some connection and getting this experience of connecting those dots, then you are like a genius. But it does take time to understand to the fact that how ISO 27701 or any other ISO that can be implemented, and you need to have fair amount of experience.
Tanan, there's also another question. Why not implement 27001 2022? Why are organizations still going for the 2013 standard when there is a
Very good
recent
question.
version available?
So ISO has given us a time of probably one more year for us to be ISO 27001 2013 certification, and then you can look for it. Now companies who have already certified on 13, probably in a year time they have to shift to 2020. They cannot say that after 2 years also are looking for 13. So when there is a certification that is rolled on by ISO, they give a buffer amount of years to be certified on the old version also. So you can be an ISO 27001 certified certified for 2013 section release even for one more year, 1 or 1.5 year.
I
That
think
is
if I
there.
remember correctly, it's still 2025 when the
Yes.
2013 standard certification is being offered.
But after
Post
that,
that,
everyone has to go. Any company cannot say that I am 13 certified in 2027 also. They cannot say. They have to look for the new one.
the reason also, Jack, is that it actually takes time to do an overhaul in an organization because the size of the organization is so huge and there are so many moving parts. It's not really easy because ISO, you have different business functions that would be taking care of different control categories. So there's a lot of interactions with other business functions and there's a lot of training that you also have to do. You cannot naturally assume that they would understand the controls or it would be easier for them to comprehend and share the list of processes or align the list of processes to what 22 version requires for. Because of the size of organizations and the scale of operations, the buffer time is given. And one more reason that I know about that why organizations are not going for 2022, initially there were not a lot of auditing bodies that were rolling out these certifications. So that also was an issue when the certification came out. The certification bodies did not have the relevant resourcing or the timings to give out those certifications. So this also came as one of the other reasons that organizations were not going for 27,122.
And Krishna, do you also support this saying that the number of documentation that goes across is humongous? A lot of documentation need to be done, and there's not easy to shift from here to there and from this year to that year. And for that reason, many other companies say that okay, the documentation is already there. Let's put a revised date to it. If there's nothing changed in my company, and let's not shift until unless we are pushed to shift to the new version of ISO.
Perfect. And we spoke a bit about the different ways you can start your journey. The first one was doing a scoping. It will help you understand what to include and what not to include. Then there are a few other activities that we have mentioned here, including conducting a privacy risk assessment, develop certain clause documentation, or as we call as an ISMS manual or a PIMS manual. You can also call it an integrated manual, right? Depends on how you want to structure that within your organization. Then you can look at the different privacy controls, how it is applicable to you as a controller, as a processor, go on implementing those procedures. And then, of course, ISMS and PIMS focuses a lot on measuring your performance. It should not be arrow shot in the dark where you cannot assess whether it has hit the target or not. So you need some kind of metrics so that you can identify whether whatever you are doing, whatever operational changes you have included or involved in your organization, are they actually helping the organization protect data? So some simple metrics such as decrease in security incidents or increase in reporting of security incidents. Some of these metrics can be played around and customized to what suits your organization and probably also help you to understand the effectiveness of this.
Adding to it, I'll also say that the training sessions that an individual has to run in the organization to make sure the employees of the company do understand what exactly is going through, what is ISO, what is privacy, what is security. That is also important, and it takes a lot of time to make people onboarded with the journey that you are going across. The company is looking for ISO 27001 certification. That means that all the individuals have to be part of it, which means that they also need to understand small things. What is a data controller, data processor? Because you would be driving the audit from your point of view, and individual sitting across on a different angle or from a developers would not be able to understand what is going through, but at least pick up things which they also understand, and you have to drive the sessions to make sure that you are onboarding everyone to understand the value of it. And this is a very helpful thing. So the learning and taking sessions on privacy is one of the major things that goes across and continual improvement of the company.
Tanin, this also brings us to the question where what are some challenges that people could face when they are implementing 27701? So, what are some challenges that you can also address from your personal experience that you have faced? And I think one of the key challenges are bandwidth or resource constraints. I hear about that a lot, but what is your opinion on the different challenges?
First of all, the classification. So we have a data set and we do the classification. So people come with us saying that why the classification is required, why there's chunk of data let be in that way, why not PI and SPDI, why do you do that, and why you have calculated this, and why you are putting out all those controls to make sure the data is secure and all that. So yes, starting from there on, making people understand, and then when you draft anything and you try to onboard them. For example, if I have to call for any developers or any other individuals to be on part of a call to understand what we are driving and what we need their inputs to it to make sure that we understand the flow of data from one angle to another. So they would say that I don't have time and I have a new target to be achieved now, and this is delaying the process of me fulfilling that. Yes, we would see people saying that, and that is one more challenge where you will not feel that you are not getting people onboarded along with the journey of getting certified. So resource constraint is there, and the knowledge, obviously, because I know that I am not a developer, I will not have developing skills. Similarly, I do not expect them to have all the skills that what I am having it, but I have to make those bridge. I need to make them understand what we're doing it. So yes, doing that also is also very important, and you need to drive privacy sessions every now and then. Privacy in companies, they have privacy month, privacy week, or privacy day or something, and they make sure that they're driving that privacy culture to make sure that individuals understand the value of it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also remember a company that was trying to drive awareness through cookies. So they
Yeah.
actually put up a plate of cookies and put up a sheet next to it. And they said, whoever wants a cookie, just share some personal information. So then they drove a narrative out of it on why you should never accept cookies and give your personal data. And I think that's one of the creative ways on how you can push awareness in your organization. What we also have seen is a lot of crosswords, quizzes,
Yes.
newsletters, or probably screensavers are some simple things that you can do to increase that awareness. And it's very important if you want to drive these implementations, because the most successful implementations always involve very high level of awareness. Only then people would be supporting you, or the different business functions would come together.
Adding to that, I'll talk about that the cookies thing that you talk about. I saw a picture called as a consent management. There's a very important thing in privacy comes into picture, consent. Now, what happens in that? That's in that picture. It talks about there are a lot of lanyards, red lanyards and blue lanyards. So you are joining for a meeting. You can pick up your set of lanyard, red or blue. If you are in red, you will not be pictured in any of the photograph. If you are taking the blue, you'll be pictured in the photograph, and that will be put up in the company website. So in that way, it's taking a consent. So people understand the value of how the consent is been given. I am picking up the red one. I'm not giving you the consent to take my picture. So if I'm taking up the blue lanyard, that is I'm giving you a consent of taking my picture, and then you can take my picture and then you put up. I'm giving the consent so easily, and so when the things have been explained in such a simple way, it was very good for me. I mean, it was something to be I feel to implement someday somewhere.
I hope we do a webinar someday, in-person webinar, where we can actually use that notion as well, then.
Yeah, that was really good one that I found on the Google website, and this is something the way of so this is what you got to keep on doing and thinking way beyond how people can understand the value of it. Now, if I would have made them understand by reading a page of consent and tell them this is what exactly consent is, but the way just a small exercise had a humongous impact on the individual, and they understand the value of it. Now, picking up the blue lanyard gave them an understand. Okay, I'm giving you the right to take my picture. I'm not giving the right to take not my picture. That's what it's all about. It.
That's true. I think that's a very creative way of putting it on how to also impart that awareness. So, really great thing there. And thank you, Tanin, for discussing the organizational challenges. And we are towards the end of our presentation. So, thank you everyone for coming in, and thank you for spending and sharing your time with us. And thank you, Tanin, again. And with this, we'll close this webinar, and have a good day, everyone, and have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Have a good day ahead. Bye bye.